everybody, and welcome into episode 38 of the H&M Trucking podcast. I am your host, Marcus. Thank you so much for being here today. From wherever you're joining us from, we appreciate you tuning in. If you're rolling down the road, maybe you're taking your break, maybe you're on a 10 or a 34, whatever it is, we always appreciate the time that you spend here on the H&M Trucking podcast with us. I'm fresh off of a trip out to the Midwest, was out there in Omaha and Plattsmouth, getting some stuff done. I'm a little bit nervous, actually, to be honest with you, because I was part of a photo shoot that took place. We were in the studio for like 7 hours taking pictures, and I wish that I could tell you that a white and gold tracksuit covered in Bengal tigers was as weird as it got, but it wasn't. And you'll be able to see those photos. They're going to use them for all sorts of things like YouTube thumbnails and promoting the podcast and all that good stuff. So look forward to seeing that, and also look forward to seeing me in some of the more, I don't want to say provocative positions, but I will say possibly embarrassing. I had a lot of fun. It's always a good time to try to be creative in a new way. So there you go. Photo shoot. That's why the beard looks so good. If you're watching this on YouTube, I had a professional take care of the beard, really line me up and taper me off. I probably took like 10 pounds off of my chubby little face here. So I was really happy about that. And I'm glad I got to get out there. It's cold out in the Midwest, man. And it's a little bit different than what I'm dealing with here in the Pacific Northwest. We are in the middle of an atmospheric river. Things are flooding people's homes. People up in Washington have actually passed away. It's been pretty serious. Everything where I'm at down here in the Willamette Valley in Oregon is looking okay, but I'll tell you right now, I did have a couple of drives from Eugene to Portland and back over this trip, and man, the hydroplaning was out of control on the highways out there. So if you've had some experience with it, if you're experiencing the weather changes across the country right now, go ahead and let us know in the comments what you're dealing with. I would love to hear about it. And a quick note, because I was getting on a plane to come from Omaha to Salt Lake City on my journey home yesterday, and all of a sudden, because we were on this little tiny plane, my carry-on bag would not fit in the overhead compartment. A very nice flight attendant told me to go to the back of the plane. She actually grabbed my bag for me and took it up front and checked it. But she told me something when I was back there with her that was a little bit disturbing. She had moved some people's coats and one guy's backpack, like a very small backpack, out of the overhead bin and given it to them to put under their seats so that I could maybe get my bag in the overhead bin. And people were incredibly rude. And she told me when we were in the back of the plane that is a very common happening for them. If they take somebody's coat or backpack or maybe purse out of the overhead bin, people get really upset. And, you know, it's the holidays. So I was kind of thinking, how can I relate this to you guys and maybe make something out of it? Obviously, I guess the only thing that kind of comes out of it is just be kind, man. It's the holidays. It's a stressful time of year. And I think it goes beyond just, you know, the experience that I had in the plane. Obviously, nobody wants to be on a plane, so it's easy to be pissed off there. But think about it from the perspective of, like last week, talking to Joe Barganetti and Tom Woods. From a customer service perspective, you know, somebody's having a bad day out there every single day. And as a driver, a pro driver, somebody who really cares about what they do each day, I know you guys are thinking about that. Kill them with kindness, you know, just hit them right in the chops with that smile. And, you know, maybe if you see an idiot out there driving on the road and there's some sort of interaction that happens between you, just remember this time of year that kindness can go a long way and maybe diffuse a situation that could explode into something way bigger than what it needs to be. So that's my message for you as we start episode 38 of the H&M Trucking podcast. Podcast? Did I just call it a podcast? I'm a little bit tired. It was a long day yesterday. I'm probably going to have a couple of those. I apologize in advance. Be kind to your fellow man, woman, or person out there today, and probably try being kind for the rest of the year and maybe into the new year. It could shorten one of your days. Let's get to the stuff.
From Omaha, Nebraska, to whatever lane you're driving, this is the H&M Trucking Podcast with your host, Marcus Bridges.
All right, right, so I got an email from Eve with some important safety information, and of course, it's that time of year. You know I'm going to be talking about this stuff, and I don't want to beat a dead horse here. I know at the end of the day, you pro drivers out there know a lot more about this than what I do, and you also have a lot of experience with it. But when Eve sends me something, I pass it on, because when you really break it down to brass tacks, that's my damn job. So let me read you a little bit from the NHTSA's winter driving tips document that Eve sent me. A lot of it's going to be repeat stuff, but that's okay. It's never a bad thing to refresh our memory and think about driving on these terrible roads when snow's falling, ice is out there, and if you're in the Pacific Northwest, you're floating down an atmospheric river. One of the things that is just a real basic, fundamental thing about driving in inclement weather is obviously to slow down. And don't forget, we got some advice from James Fonda himself not very long ago that was the simplest advice that you could ask for, but it really carries a lot of weight. And when you think about it, it was the best thing that we got on that episode. And that advice was, don't try too hard. One of the basics that the NTHSA wants to remind you of is to slow down. It's obviously harder to control or stop your vehicle on a slick or snow-covered surface. In 2021, there were an estimated 121,156 police-reported crashes that occurred when there was snow or sleet conditions at the time of the crash. That's a lot. On the road, increase your following distance. I think all pro drivers out there would like us four-wheelers to maybe not drive right up their butt, increase the following distance. And here's another thing. If you're passing a truck and you're going to get back in the lane in front of them, don't forget, they don't stop as fast as you do, and you're now in front of them. So you get in front of them, all of a sudden something's on the road or somebody else in front of you stops, and you have to stop. You got to give that truck room. So don't get over right in front of a truck. You know, some of the drivers that I've talked to on this podcast will tell you they want 3 football fields because that's how long they know it takes them to stop at highway speeds. If you're prevailing speed and you're pulling away from them, obviously you can use your best judgment there if you're a four-wheeler listening to this, but just trying to remind people to be safe out there. Everybody wants to get home for the holidays. Everybody knows there's, chestnuts roasting on an open flame or like presents under the tree. Whatever it is that you're looking forward to, you got to get home to be able to experience it. So slow down and don't follow quite so closely. This is a little piece from the NTHSA that I thought was important, what to do in an emergency. There's a few little bullet points here that we just don't talk about that often, and I think they are an important part of staying safe because you never know if you're going to be stranded out there or if the roads are going to shut down. Now, obviously, you got your APUs. You guys are well set up to sit on the side of the road for a while in a semi and not run out of resources. Hopefully, if you don't have to sit there for weeks on end, you can get up and get rolling and get back to wherever you need to be. But there's a few things here that I think are really, really good for four-wheelers and drivers, pro drivers alike. Stay with your car and don't overexert yourself in case of an emergency, all right? Overexerting yourself in the cold can lead to all sorts of crazy things, including hypothermia. It's easier to pull a muscle. It's easier to slip and fall. Like, let's think about this from a safety standpoint. I was watching a video the other day on TikTok, and there was basically a snowy pileup. And actually, I think, if I'm not mistaken, this pileup that I'm referencing here happened last year or the year before. But somebody reshared the video, and it's a really good refresher. Cars are just careening into this big pileup because it's a whiteout condition. They can't see. And then when they do see that there's just a wad of cars on the highway in front of them, they can't stop. So they're slamming into them. And there's a truck driver sitting in his truck videotaping all of this. And a woman's yelling at him from her car. And she starts to get out of the car. No, never. All right. If you think that anybody else is going to come sliding into a pileup at highway speeds, do not get out of your car until safety officials tell you to. You don't want to catch a Buick right between the eyes, okay? And let me tell you, just because they can't see your car or your truck from a long distance away and they're flying into you at highway speeds, what makes you think they're going to be able to maneuver around a person? You don't want to do it. Those of you that have hit a deer in a truck know what happens to it. We don't want to see that happen to one of our drivers or anybody else for that matter. Stay with your vehicle. Stay in your vehicle. Make sure that your vehicle is visible if you're on the side of the road. Use those cones, use those flares, use the things that will draw attention and let people know that you are there so that they don't come flying into you. And, some of the rest of this stuff has to do with more four-wheeler stuff. If you are a four-wheeler and you're listening to this, be mindful of carbon monoxide poisoning, okay? If your car is completely snowed in and you keep turning it on, you can give yourself carbon monoxide poisoning if that tailpipe is not clear of snow and debris. So just something to think about for the four-wheelers out there. You drivers are all inspecting your tires all the time before you go out there. That's part of the pre-trip, so that's really important. One more thing that the NHTSA, and I think I called it the NTHSA earlier, so sorry for that. As I said, it's been a long week. But one more thing that they want to remind you about is to stock your vehicle appropriately for these types of conditions. And we've talked about this on this podcast before. Get yourself a snow shovel, a broom or an ice scraper. Sand or kitty litter is a really good thing to have because guess what? It's slick out there and you might need some traction to get going, especially if you've got 80,000 pounds tacked to the back of the thing. Jumper cables, a flashlight, warning devices like flares and emergency markers. We talked about that. A blanket. All right, a lot of you guys are sleeping in your cabs, obviously. You're OTR drivers, so you're probably equipped with a blanket. Wouldn't be a bad idea to throw an extra one in, especially a thick one that could keep you warm for a long period of time. Finally, your cell phone charger is really important and also paramount in this situation. Water, food, and any necessary medicine that you might need while you're out there. Thank you to Eve for sending this along for me, and if you want to read any of this stuff for yourself, you can head on over to nhtsa.gov/winter-driving-tips. But once again, I know that you drivers are well versed in this. The people listening have been through some hellacious conditions out there on I-80 in Wyoming and Utah and all the rest of the places that it gets hairy. Up on Cabbage Hill over here on Interstate 84 in Oregon, Snoqualmie Pass up in the great state of Washington. Well, great state of Washington's probably an overstatement. Up in the state of Washington. But it's always good to be mindful about these things, as I said. Just be thinking about them. And now, before I get out of here for this segment and we get to our driver profile for the day, I also want to talk about something that came from H&M directly. Now, when they tell me something like this, it means that they want you, the driver, to know it. And I understand that there's been a little bit of pushback, maybe a little bit of bitching about this. Look, I get it. I know that sometimes the changes that the company makes aren't always things that you guys are super happy with at first, but they're the changes that the company makes, and we got to put up with them. And I think this one is probably for the better, okay? This has to do with unreported damages. We talked about some unreported damages a long time ago. Back in like the 10, maybe 15, episode 10, episode 15 area. You'd have to scroll back down the feed for a while to find it, but it's there. This is kind of an update to that, and it's really important here. The policy reads as follows. If drivers have damage and they inform H&M of that damage, they will lose 1 month of safety bonus. Okay, that sucks, right? Nobody wants to lose a month of safety bonus, but there's an important second part to this policy. If you have damage and you do not tell H&M about it and H&M finds out about it, which they will, you will lose 3 months of your safety bonus. What sounds better? Fessing up to it, letting them know what happened, being upfront and being honest and losing 1 month, or trying to hide it and losing 3 months? Look, I think that's a pretty easy answer there. I would go with 1 month for sure. Nobody likes coming to boss with their tail between their legs, but hey, some of this stuff can't be avoided. Sometimes it's not your fault, and even if it is, it's an honest mistake, and it's not something that speaks to your overall prowess as a professional driver. It's just something that happened. You guys are out there rolling around with a bunch of variables that can go every which way every single day. Sometimes you get a little bit of a fender bender, or maybe somebody hits you in a parking lot or something like that. It's really important to report these damages because you don't want to lose 3 months of a safety bonus. 3 months of a safety bonus is a quarter of a year. That's not, you don't want to do that. That's money out of your pocket. No, thank you. And I also wanted to remind you that part of this policy is it does not apply to like scratches and dents and normal wear and tear. We're talking actual damage, like a busted light, a dented fender, something that is very evident as damage, okay? Unreported damage, not something you want to mess around with. And this message comes directly from Eve over at H&M to me to say, hey, relay this to the drivers. This is what I'm telling you. Report your damage. It will save you money in the long run, all right? Let's get to our driver profile. And actually, before we do that, I got to tell you a little story that kind of pertains to this unreported damage policy here at H&M, because I just thought about it right as I shut my mic off there, and I jumped back in to tell you because, I don't know, it makes me laugh, okay? I, as a young child, not really a young child, as a high school student, I was a bit of a partier, okay? Like to have fun, like to go out with my friends, like to get into some mischief from time to time. And I got caught having a party at my house by one of my dad's very close friends. Well, my dad and my mom were out of town helping my sister move. The only reason I got caught was because my dad's friend's daughter was dumb enough to get caught. That wasn't my fault. We had everything pretty well wrapped at the house. Everybody was safe. We didn't let anybody drive after they'd been drinking, but we were drinking and we were underage. I'll just put it that way. I was down at my dad's office the next night doing some homework for a big project I had due when his buddy Jeff kicked in the door, and he was very red in the face. And he told me, you have two options right now. You can call your dad, and you can tell him that you had a party last night, and you can fess up to him. Or I can call your dad, and I can tell him that you had a party last night, and I guarantee you, you won't like option two very much. He was right. I came to my dad with my tail between my legs. We had a talk. I got punished. There was a lot of other things that I didn't get to do in the coming months that I normally would have gotten to do that I was really looking forward to. But hey, that's what happens, okay? I lost a little bit to not lose a lot, because trust me, if Jeff called my dad, dude, this thing would have been out of control in a moment's notice. And you know me. I mean, you've listened to this podcast. You know that I got to keep a little bit of control here. Otherwise, things go awry quickly for me. So, just a little anecdote to go along with the unreported damages policy. It's important that you're honest. It's important that you don't lose 3 months worth of your safety bonus. All right, now let's get to the driver profile.
Knowledge and stories from coast to coast. This is your driver profile.
It's time for a driver profile here on the H&M Trucking Podcast, and I want you to give a warm welcome to H&M hopper driver Teddy Arnold. Teddy, thank you so much for being here today.
It's my pleasure, Marcus. Thank you for having me.
Of course. Now, you and I spent some time on the phone yesterday talking, setting up this interview, and you mentioned to me a couple of things about your thoughts on the onboarding process that you went through with H&M Trucking. Now, we've got some seats to fill, and I'll get to talking about that a little bit later in the program, but talk to me about your experience thus far with H&M and that onboarding process.
Okay, first off, let me start by saying I am a veteran driver. I've been driving for 20 years. I've got I'm working on my second million miles. So that's where I come from, and I don't change jobs frequently. The reason I had to change jobs is I was involved in an accident with my previous employer, and while I was off on workman's comp, they went out of business. So when I was released from workman's comp, it took me a while to find a company that was willing to hire me with my injuries and bring me on. But when I did finally come on board, towards the end of June. The ease of onboarding was phenomenal. I was able to do my urinalysis of my physical in my home city of Oklahoma City, Oklahoma. Even them renting me a car, and I drove up to Omaha, and the vehicle they rented me was one of the nicest ones I've ever driven as far as a four-wheeler goes before I bought my current vehicle that I purchased. But it was by far the best one I've driven so far. Let me tell you, they put you up in in my opinion, one of the nicest hotels in the greater Omaha area out there at the casino. And from day one I was the only one with a vehicle. Everybody else had flown in. So I drove everybody over to the bonus yard, and where we got a vehicle to use for the rest of the week. And then we went over to the main building. And had it not been for the shop being so overrun that week, we probably could have been dispatched on Thursday. But the ease of the four of us going through the process, because we were all veteran drivers, it just was so easy. And that's what's nice, is when you got veterans who know what's going on. And I don't know whether every class is that way, but I would think with the amount of experience that H&M requires for you to come to work for them, that you've been through the process once or twice before at least, and you know what's going on.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's great, man. I'm really glad to hear that about, and especially glad to hear that they're not putting you in some jalopy to drive all the way from Oklahoma City up to Omaha there. A nice rental car really can make the difference for a trip like that. I just had a really nice minivan, actually, when I was out there in Omaha, and I didn't realize how much or how nice a minivan could actually be. So I can definitely identify with that. As far as the driving, so we've heard about the onboarding process and your thoughts about that. How's the driving? How's the job so far? You're on a dedicated account right now, right?
I am on the DARPro dedicated account, meaning that I deal with one customer only as far as hauling their product. And I may go multiple places, but like right now I'm in Union City, Tennessee, and I'm loading to go to the DARPro in Watts, the DARPro blending in Watts, Oklahoma. And I pull on the scale here at Union City, and they're starting to call me by my name. They know I know the process of signing in and signing, check it out. And we just work hand in hand. It's a great customer, and I wish they had, we could bring more drivers on, but I realize that there's only 12 of us, and from what I understand, the rest of the fleet calls us the dark fleet or the dark side. So,
and why do you think that is?
I don't know. When I look for a job, I try and communicate with current drivers or former drivers of the company and find out do my due diligence as far as trying to find out whether this is a fit for me. Mm-hmm. And that was there's a Facebook page called H&M Trucking Friends that I joined, and that was one of the comments that was made is, "Oh, you're joining the dark side." And I could never get anybody to explain. And then when I was in onboarding, I asked Brenda about it, and she confirmed that, yeah, we call it the dark side or the dark fleet. So I have no idea why.
Well, if you can't ever figure out what the reason is that they call it that, you might as well just embrace it, right? Go get yourself a nice dark hood, maybe a red lightsaber, and then join the dark side. Just kind of commit to it at this point, yeah?
Well, maybe. I don't know. I've been on that dark side, portion of my life, and I kind of like living on the light side. We talked about it. We're going to talk about it a little bit later on here. I wasn't always this guy that I am now. I've got 21 years of sobriety from crystal meth, and I would not want to go back to the person I was before.
Well, congratulations on that 21 years, Teddy. I know that that's not easy. I have some friends and also family members that have gone through getting sober from various substances. I know that it takes a lot of work on yourself, and I've seen some tremendous success stories come out of people that have decided to dedicate themselves to getting sober, and hats off to you, my friend. I know it's not easy. And I just can't tell you how happy I am for you to hear that you're 21 years in. I mean, that's one hell of a stretch, and it sounds like you're not planning on stopping anytime soon.
No, don't plan on ever going back to that lifestyle again. Not to say that I haven't had the opportunity out here in years past, but when I find those opportunities, I run fast and run hard away from them. So.
Is your job something that you kind of looked to help you maintain that sobriety? Because I know just in my experience with friends and family members going through that, a lot of times they pick up a new hobby or they dedicate themselves to an old hobby, or maybe they hit the gym. They start, finding new things to do to fill that time. Is dedicating yourself to your career part of what helps you maintain that sobriety, Teddy?
Well, I'll tell you what caused me to get sober is I was traveling with the carnival. I was a carny, and my little brother owned a truck that he needed a driver for, and he was filling the seat every so, he was going through drivers like crazy. And he called me up one day and he said, man, I wish that you were on that stuff. Man, I know you could make a living out on the road. And I said, well, I probably can. And it was just that my little brother needed help, and I am all about family, and I knew that I couldn't be on the stuff and do this career. And so I just made it a point. I quit cold turkey. Wow. And it took me 6 months to get myself right where I could get out on the road. And it was an absolute, it was a terror.
Sure. I don't
never want to go through that again. And I was, this isn't me boasting, I was doing 4 grams a day.
Well, I don't have any idea what how much you do, but that sounds like a lot. I'll just put it that way.
It was a tremendous amount. But I worked the games in the carnival, and I was making great money doing what I did. And, to be honest with you, I was robbing people. Basically, I was giving them nothing for what they were doing, and I was making good money myself. And like I said, I'm not boasting of where I came from, but it's me. It's me now. And when we talk about what happened later on, maybe those that are listening will see that I'm not that person anymore.
Absolutely. Well, I listen, I know you're not boasting, and that's something that I hope the other people that are listening to this right now understand too, because one thing, at least in my experience, dealing with people getting sober and maintaining their sobriety, a very important part of that is to remember your story and remember where you were and how far you've come. And after 21 years and counting, you've come a very long way. Here you are working for H&M Trucking, loving your job, working on your 2nd million miles, by the way, which congratulations on that as well. It's a great story, Teddy, and I'm honored that you've decided to share it with us today here on the podcast, because I know sometimes this stuff isn't always easy to talk about, and I just, like I said, thank you for coming here and sharing your story with us, because I hope it can inspire some other people. Obviously, H&M drivers are well vetted, but there might be some people out there listening to this podcast that are struggling with their own substances right now. And hopefully this can inspire them to turn things around and better their own lives. I would be very happy if this podcast was able to do that for even just one person.
You and me both. I mean, everything that I've done, I'm not standing on a pulpit here and preaching, but everything I've done is by a higher power, and I truly believe in Jesus Christ, my Lord and Savior. And like I said, I'm not going to get on a pulpit here and preach, but I could not have done anything, could not have done this without His assistance.
Well, again, Teddy, really appreciate you sharing that with us, and anytime you want to come on here and talk about that again, we can get in deeper too, because I yesterday when we were on the phone, I was taking notes like crazy in the cab of my truck, trying to make sure that I got everything. And you've come to us with a lot to talk about today. So I want to give that its full due, okay, because it's a very great story and I'm very happy for you. But I also know that you've picked up some charitable type work once you got sober, and it's really important to me to talk about that today as well, because it is the season of giving. We're closing in on the holidays here, and you told me about a couple of charities when we spoke yesterday, one that you were involved with and one that is near and dear to your heart. I want to start off with that charity that you used to be involved with. Can you tell me about the charity that you used to, I guess, work for? Was that appropriate to say?
Well, I was a volunteer for it, but I can't tell you the story of that story without getting into the one that is near and dear to my heart.
Okay.
So first, we'll start off by giving you the backstory. In 2008, there were a group of drivers that got together and decided that they wanted to help deserving truck driving families that, with no fault of their own, were not going to be able to provide Christmas for their families. So a group of them got together and they sought out people in the Let's Truck. I don't know whether you're familiar with letstruck.com or letstruck.net. It was a message board for them, and they got involved with them and reached out to get donations and everything through them. And Since 2008, this charity, it's called truckerschristmasgroup.org, since 2008 has provided Christmas for 266 deserving trucking families and given out over $167,000 to those families.
That's deserving of an applause. That is deserving of an applause. I'm going to give truckerschristmasgroup.org a round of applause for that, Teddy, because that number is mind-blowing. So they're just kind of focused on trying to give the family of some truckers the Christmas that they deserve when truckers are down on their luck. Is that kind of the mission there?
That is correct. I mean, without going into too many details, the years that I was involved, I knew that there were some families that had house fires and just could not recover from the house fires, and because of the home fires, they've just weren't going to have Christmas. Mm-hmm. And it's not a lot of money that they get, but it's enough to buy a Christmas meal and put some presents on the tree or pay an electric bill. They don't ever tell them how they have to spend the money, whether they have to spend it on gifts or anything. It's a hand up, not a handout.
Absolutely. And I love those types of charities that are, they're just at the very basic fundamental truth of their operation is just to reach out a hand and help somebody up onto that next step. Because sometimes we're not down because of anything that we've done. I mean, nobody wishes to have a house fire. Nobody wishes to have unexpected medical bills or anything like that or be displaced. So if you get involved with a charity like this that just helps people out, man, I bet it makes you feel good. And I'm so happy that you brought this to us today so that we could plug it on the podcast. Once again, if you want to learn more about it, head over to truckerschristmasgroup.org. I'm actually at their website right now. Lots of information here and a bunch of really good brands that are sponsoring them and helping them out. So they're open for donations as well. If you're listening to this right now and you think, hey, that's a hell of a charity, I would like to help out, I'm sure that anywhere from $1 to as much as you can give, they're more than happy to put that money to good use.
Now the charity that sprung from this in 2009, they had just handed out the money for the 2009 Christmas season when Arrow Truck Lines out of Tulsa, Oklahoma announced that they were shut, or they didn't even announce it. They just shut the fuel cards off and left the drivers stranded.
Are you
all
serious?
Over the country. Yes, sir.
What?
If you Google Arrow Truck shutdown, you will see that owner has gone to federal prison, and he was a real douche canoe.
To put it, and that's probably as kind as you can be with it, I would assume.
He had a multi-million-dollar home in Tulsa, and he not only messed his drivers, but he messed with Freightliner. And I don't know whether you were in the business or know about back in the day that Flying J had their own bank, and he was into them deep. I mean, his creditors are just, I don't know whether they've even recouped even a minuscule amount of that. But it was bad. Maybe even some of our drivers back in the day worked for him. Like I said, this was back in 2009 that this happened.
Mm-hmm.
And we went to our sponsors and they got on Trucking Bozos radio show. And for those of you who don't know, Dale Summers had a multi-year career on 700 WLW, which is a multi-watts. I don't know how many watts that channel has, but you could after midnight, you could hear that channel almost nationwide. And eventually he went on to Sirius XM and had a long career at Sirius XM as well before he passed away. But we got on there and we were able to get 45 of those drivers home. The last driver flew out of St. Louis on Christmas Day. He spent Christmas with what would become the president of the charity that I became involved with, called Trucker Charity. He had Christmas with them, and he drove him to the airport on St. Louis, and he flew home Christmas night. so he was able to get back home to his family.
Wow.
But we saw a need in the industry that companies at the time were shutting down or letting drivers go and telling the drivers they had to figure out how to get home on their own. So we started Trucker Charity, and our motto was, we get you safe, we get you fed, and we get you home. And that most of the time we would buy you a Greyhound bus ticket and put you on a bus. And then, granted, that's not the best way to get home, but at least you're getting home and you're safe, and, you know, so you can move your career on.
Mm-hmm.
Now that charity is no longer in business because with the advent of social media and how that's come about, people could start up GoFundMes and Cash Apps and could help themselves out just by putting things out on social media. So that's why we shut our doors. But we shut our doors I think it was 2020 or 2019. I can't remember exactly. But it was just so hard for us to get the charitable giving and to get help. And we were seeing just an influx of cases that we just couldn't help. People were asking for help with utility bills and rents and everything else. And there were other charities that had come and gone that, you know, over the years, there have been so many great charities for truck drivers. And there are still great charities operating, like Truckers Christmas Group. The St. Christopher's Fund is another great one.
Mm-hmm.
There is a charity that is run by truck drivers and non-truck drivers called Operation Rogers, where they use trucks to transport pets to new homes.
Oh, that's awesome.
There are all kinds of stories out there and charities out there. I just ask that, you know, if you're thinking about giving in this time of year, do your due diligence and find out exactly how much of your dollar is going to those that they're helping. Now, I can tell you with Truckers Christmas Group, 100% of every dollar that you give is going to go to a family. All of those people on that board and that committee for choosing the recipients of that money are straight volunteers. Not a dime goes to operating cost or anything like that. It all goes to the families. So if you give $10, they're going to disperse that $10 over how many families they're going to help this year.
Mm-hmm.
I can tell you that if you know somebody who is in need with no fault of their own, that they're not going to have a Christmas, you can go to that truckerschristmasgroup.org and you can nominate that family. Nominations are open until the 18th of this month. So far, they've had 15 nominations, and they're starting to. What they do is they call these families up and they get their story. They have the story that is told to them by whoever's nominating them, and then they call and talk to the families and find out everything. And so it is the most deserving people who get this money based on who they feel is most deserving.
Sure.
So if you know of anybody, but make sure that they are a truck driver or they work in the shop, work in the office. They have to be affiliated with a trucking company. Make a nomination. Don't leave any family behind. You know, I was talking with Mark Abrams, the president of Truckers Christmas Group, prior to this podcast because I wanted to get these facts. Charitable giving across the board this year is down 40%.
Wow.
They are hurting for donations, guys. So if you can not have a Subway sandwich one day, please give that $15 or whatever you pay for that Subway sandwich to them.
Sure.
If you can go without a cup of coffee one day, just give them the cup of coffee.
Anything helps.
Every little bit helps.
Yeah, and it compounds. You know, you think about 100 truck drivers listening to this right now go without one cup of coffee for one day, and all of them send that money in. Think about you might have just taken care of one family right there. It's that easy, and it goes further than what you might think, your dollar in a situation like this.
It really does. It really does. And me being on the other end, I didn't join Trucker Charity right away at the inception. I never came around until 2011 or 2012. I think I joined Trucker Charity strictly as a volunteer. And what we would do is when we would get a case of a driver who was stranded, the first thing we would do, we would get them to a truck stop, and we traditionally used TA Petros, and TA Petros stepped up from the very beginning and said, look, if you can get a driver to our truck stop, we will give them a meal. We will provide you, all the copies and faxing and everything that they need. And we will not kick them out of the truck stop until you tell us that you're not able to help them. So we got a lot of meals for a lot of drivers at the Iron Skillets and the Country Pride.
Yep.
We got many a meal for many drivers that way. And then we would all get together. We'd get the application, and the president or the vice president or the secretary would read this thing, and then they would contact us by a text message, and we would go into a conference call. And much like this call here, we would talk about the case, we would vet it, then we would call the driver and we would get their story, and then we would call the company and get their side of the story. And if the driver hadn't done A, nothing illegal to get them fired, and B, not failed a drug test to get fired, we would get them a bus ticket and get them home. Now, granted, a lot of us drivers have a lot of stuff, and we had to tell many drivers, I'm sorry, stuff can be replaced. If you want to get home, pare it down. You're only allowed one bag and a carry-on.
Right.
So don't love stuff. Stuff can be replaced. Love the family, love people, love your family. Stuff can be replaced.
Mm-hmm.
So in 2014, at the Mid-America Truck Show, have you ever been to the Mid-America Truck Show?
I haven't, man, but I've been beating down some doors trying to get out there. I feel like recording a live episode of this podcast out there at some point in time would be a lot of fun.
Oh, it is a blast. Every year at the Mid-America Truck Show, we would have an auction with Operation Roger. And I hit every booth in that pavilion and drummed up a lot of donations. And we had one of our largest auctions that we had that we split the funds equally between Operation Roger and ourselves, because we shared a booth space at Mid-America Truck Show with Operation Roger. So that we just chose to split everything down the middle. Mm-hmm. And I was then approached and asked if I would become the fundraising director, because I've got the gift of gab.
I don't say.
I can also sell snow to an Eskimo.
Yeah, sounds like it. Catch a popsicle to a woman in white gloves, right?
Exactly. So from 2014 until the charity shut down, I was the fundraising director for Trucker Charity. And every year it became harder and harder to get donations. So when I ask you guys, and I deeply, deeply ask you, if you could just give $5, please give $5 to this charity. It would mean so much to me. I can't give anything this year, or I would. As I said, I was injured on my previous job, and last September I fell off of a load of hay and I broke both my legs.
Oh,
so I'm still financially recovering from that myself.
Well, it kind of sounds like this is your substitute for giving money, is to come on the podcast and ask if there's anybody else out there that can help them this year. And listen, man, it's really cool that you're dedicating so much time and talking about what these charities do, who's involved with them, and why these are good ones. Because something that you touched on earlier, you said do your research, do your due diligence, because a lot of charities, they do good things, but they're also padding the pockets of very rich executives that already have their Christmas is taken care of. And maybe 75 cents of your dollar ends up going to pay the administration staff of some of these other charities. But it sounds like for Truckers Christmas Group and also for the now shut down Trucker Charity, that was not how these things were run. They were volunteer run, or they are volunteer run, and every dollar goes directly to the cause, which is really, if you're going to make a charitable contribution, that's the best kind to make.
Well, I can attest for a fact that I know that those folks over there running truckerchristmasgroup.org, every member on that board of directors for that charity, that 501c3 charity, they are out here running up and down the roads themselves, day in and day out. I have the president who I spoke to, Mark, and his wife. They're team drivers, and they were in Tennessee today. They were headed west, but he couldn't tell me where they were headed because they drive for a company that is an armored car 18-wheeler type situation. So could not disclose their destination. All he could say is he was in Tennessee headed west.
Mm-hmm.
Idella Hansen, she is on the board of directors. I don't know what her position is, but she has been trucking since the 60s. She is, and mind you, a lot of these people that I know, I can name I know 7 people who have TA truck stops named after them from their citizen drivers.
Mm-hmm.
Personally know 7 drivers. Could call them up at any moment, any day. And these are all good, salt-of-the-earth people. And let me tell you, they're just as charitable and just as kind, and would give you the shirt off to the back if it was their last shirt. Just salt of the earth.
It sounds like it, Teddy. And I got to be honest with you, you've convinced me, all right? I actually, while you were just telling that story, I just sent my personal donation off to truckerschristmasgroup.org, got it taken care of, and I'll tell you, it feels good because I know based on what you've told me that this money is going to help out drivers, and drivers have helped me out. I've worked at this job since September of last year, so I'm a little bit over a year now, and the people that I've met, the kindness that runs through this industry is really second to none in my opinion, and I can't thank drivers enough like yourself for sharing their time with me. And so this is the way I've chosen to try to give back a little bit this year. And I just really appreciate you bringing this up because I'm not able to give a lot, but I'm able to give a little bit. And I hope that it goes to help somebody have the Christmas that they and their family deserve this year.
And you would not believe the joy that you hear in these people's voice when they do finally give out. What they do is they get on that group call and they call these families one at a time. And they spend probably a half hour, 45 minutes, an hour with them, hearing the joy and the jubilation in their voice, knowing that they're going to knowing that some of the weight's been taken off of them. And it's just, I can't put it in words, the joy that you would hear in these calls. And I think, I can't swear to it, but they used to allow people who just wanted to listen to the calls at the end to call into this, into the group and listen to these calls. Now they won't be able to participate. They can listen to them, you know.
That's awesome.
Yeah, or in the past. And Marcus, I urge you, I will gladly share Mark's number with you, and I urge you to give Mark a call. And maybe before the end of this holiday season, maybe, just give him a quick 5-minute call and record a message with him and hear more about them.
Absolutely. I definitely will, and I'll have you text that number to me so that I can do that because I would love to give a little bit more time even to truckerschristmasgroup.org, especially here right around the holidays. It sounds to me like they are a super legit charity that is doing the right thing and helping drivers out, which is all we want to hear. I hate to kind of draw this to a close, Teddy, because I feel like I could talk to you about this for hours on end. And I'm so glad that there's people out there that are doing this kind of work and helping the people that need to be helped. It means the world to me that you want to share this with us today. And I hope that the rest of our listeners get as much out of it as what I have, because I'm fighting back, choking up here a little bit, to be honest with you. So thank you for that. But before we wrap up here today, if there's anything else that you would like to say about the charities real quick, I only have one more question for you, but it doesn't have to do with the charities. So I don't want to cut you off. If you'd like to finish a thought or anything like that about the charities or say one last thing, please do real quick.
Well, one last thing. If you don't want to give anything to them, they do have a store that you can go on and buy things from the store where people have donated products for truck drivers. Marcus, I don't know whether you still have the website up. I don't even know what's on the store this year. I know that Idella did make a handmade quilt that has sold already, but there are numerous things on that store that you can purchase to give out as a gift, and all of that money will go to those families as well.
And I'm sitting here looking at it right now. Road King Premium Mono Bluetooth headset, Road Pro 12 volt 1.5 quart slow cooker, flow below wheel covers, scan gauge. How about a Black Canyon Ultra Soft fleece blanket? There's a lot of really great stuff on there, and that's just scratching the surface. I'm giving you quick little snippets of all the things that they have. So drop by truckerschristmasgroup.org and click the store, and you'll be able to actually buy a gift there. And it does say that it's sold out, unfortunately, but the handmade quilt is beautiful. And how cool is that to have that leading the charge right up there at the top of the page?
I know Idella said it took her, I believe, 4 months to make that quilt. She hated every minute of it, but she makes one quilt a year to put on that store. So that quilt is just a one-of-a-kind, handmade. She puts every stitch is made with love, not only for the person who's receiving the quilt, but for every family that money is going to go to help.
That's awesome. Once again, if you're listening and you want to know more about it, go to truckerschristmasgroup.org and you can get all the information that you need. Now on to something that's not going to make me choke up quite as much, but something that I absolutely love to talk about with every driver that's willing to talk to me about it. Tell me about your friend Stuart, Teddy.
Stuart is my 3-year-old 10-pound Chihuahua, and he is my little road buddy. He's not one of those yappy Chihuahuas. I mean, you come up to the truck and he's going to make himself known, but he's not yappy. He doesn't, but he loves to go to the office and he loves to meet everybody.
Oh, and I bet the office loves it when Stuart comes around too, don't they? They're real dog lovers over there at the front office.
Oh, they are. They are. And granted, that is one reason why I chose H&M is because of their pet policy. They have one of the best pet policies in the industry.
That's awesome. Well, give Stuart a big pat on the head from us here at the H&M Trucking Podcast. And I'm glad that he's out there keeping you company on your trips to Darpro and every place else that you have to go, Teddy. I really appreciate you sharing your time with us today. And I appreciate you not only sharing your time, but using the time that you have to share to try to help other people. It really is a noble cause. And you've given us some great info today here on how, if we're interested in helping this Christmas season, there's a great place for us to go do it.
Well, I thank you for giving me the time and the soapbox to stand on and do it.
Absolutely. Anytime, Teddy. And I know we're going to stay in touch. We'll get you back on the podcast again soon, my friend. All right?
All right. Thank you, Marcus.
Thank you. Great stuff from Teddy there. What a cool guy. And, I always love it when people come on here and they have a cause and they have something that they're passionate about, that they want to talk about. And especially when it has to do with, charitable organizations. We don't get a lot of that here. And I'm always willing and ready and able to plug any of those charities that you guys are trying to help out, or maybe you're personally involved with. It's that time of year, okay? It's the giving season. And one of the best things that I can do is use this podcast as a platform to try to help other truck drivers out there. Maybe they're not even listening to this, but maybe one of you guys hears it, somebody kicks down a donation to one of those charities, and all of a sudden, a driver that's having a rough time gets a little bit of help. And you know what? I don't even care if I ever hear about those stories. What I want is to make that action happen. It's not about being able to pat myself on the back. It's about helping drivers out when drivers need help. So big thanks to Teddy Arnold there for bringing up those charities. And some pretty good news here that I'm really excited about. I guess, it's not really like breaking news by any means, but technically I could use my news button. H&M has seats to fill. That's right. We're looking for drivers. So if you know somebody that's got the experience, they've got a good safety record, they're a good driver, they're a responsible person, they won't go and not report damage. These are good candidates. Let us know. Well, don't let me know. Obviously, have them turn in an application to H&M, because I heard through the grapevine here just recently that there are some new trucks arriving and they need butts in those seats. So if you're a driver listening to this and you don't work for H&M, but you're not very happy where things are, you heard Teddy talk about it. The onboarding process here at H&M is pretty smooth. And of course, if you listen to this podcast, you've heard all the anecdotal evidence that drivers that work for H&M really enjoy working for H&M. It's a good gig, man, and it's a lot of good people working at this company. Everybody pulling their own weight to make sure that things are as good as they possibly can be, okay? We're no stranger to the fact that it hasn't been a very good year, all right? And I guess that's kind of more for the freight market as a whole. I know there's drivers out there that have had good years, and hats off to you. Hats off to all of you drivers that have made it through this kind of sweaty period in the freight market. But if H&M has seats to fill, that means that there's good jobs available out there, and H&M has seats to fill. So call your buddies, call your uncles and your aunts, whoever you know that's got some good driving experience, a clean safety record, and get them in touch with H&M, because we got trucks, we got seats to fill. That's going to pretty much wrap it up for me here today on this episode of the H&M Trucking Podcast. Just wanted to eye my notes really quick and make sure that I'm not forgetting anything. We'll do the homework here because I haven't mentioned it yet today. Look, you guys are doing great out there. YouTube views are way up. I don't know what we did. I know we got some really smart people working in the background, like my guy Tyler and Haley Moreland. They are always working on these videos. They do such a great job with our YouTube. And if you're just a Spotify guy, or maybe you're listening to this on Apple or whatever, you have to go check out the H&M Trucking YouTube page, because there's always video of each one of these podcast episodes up there. But aside from that, they do shorts, they do some funny stuff, and like I said, they've found a way to get it out in front of you guys, and you guys are eating it up right now. You can also touch base with me in the YouTube comments section. We've had some people commenting on our videos, and I love the interaction. So make sure to drop by our YouTube and check it out. Just search H&M Trucking on YouTube. You'll see my big dumb face on there way more than it ever should have been published to the public. But with that said, the YouTube channel has been a phenomenal addition to this whole podcast thing, and it was here long before I got here, so I really appreciate H&M Trucking for letting me jump on and kind of, hitch my wagon to their YouTube page. So definitely subscribe on your podcast platform of choice. That really helps us out too. You know, we got to show these numbers to James Fonda from time to time, and it would be nice if some of you guys would do me a favor if you're listening and just click that subscribe button. It doesn't cost you anything, but it really helps us out, keeps James off my back, and, it'll also do something for you. It's going to let you know every time we crank out a new episode. Those happen obviously on Wednesday mornings. You're well aware of that now, but if you hit subscribe, they'll send you a reminder whenever we pump out a new episode. And then, I will hug you and give you a good firm handshake and look you right in the eye if I ever get to meet you in person for subscribing to this podcast, which I know in terms of a gift for doing something for me, that isn't like that great of a thing, but it's what I have and I'm willing to offer it to you. So once again, go subscribe on your podcast platform of choice. And if you feel so inclined, I would love a review. All right. We don't have very many reviews for this podcast. It's the H&M Trucking Podcast. It's meant for people working at H&M. You know what it is. And a lot of you probably feel like, man, if I have something to say, if I've got a review, I'll just give it to Marcus or I'll tell Eve. That's great too. But if you put a review up on your podcast platform of choice, then it lets other people that maybe don't work for H&M and are out there looking for a podcast to listen to about trucking, kind of lets them know what this whole thing is all about and why you like it. So hit the subscribe button, give us a review if you have the time. 'Tis the season to give to people, just people in general, and I am a people, so I hope that you can do that stuff for me. Really appreciate all the time you've spent with me here today. I want to thank Teddy Arnold for coming on for the driver profile. Thanks to Eve Essery for sending us that safety info. And thanks to all you drivers for making H&M what it is. And what would this podcast be without my tagline? Stay fresh, cheese bags. We'll see you next week.
Thank you for listening to the H&M Trucking Podcast. Please leave a review, subscribe, and connect with Marcus over at the H&M Trucking social media channels. And if you're considering a job at H&M, find us at hmtrucking.com. Until next time, stay safe and ahead of the curve drivers.